Boom! Welcome everyone. It's Vaughn here. Firstly, I want to say thank you for joining me. Secondly, I need to apologize. The last couple of months has been fraught with many personal changes and shifts in my life. And so, as a consequence of that, it's been a bit up and down with some of the bigger goals and things that I'm trying to build in the back end of Board Mastery. So I want to thank those that have been sending me some screenshots of what some of the errors have been in the back end with links and things like that that I thought I had a sort of control over. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to rejig the back end of the membership area, do a little bit of work there for you guys to make it a bit more user friendly. As you know, just like dancing, pursuit of perfection, baby. So I do appreciate you uh, understanding sometimes there'll be some technical glitches going on, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to show up and be here, just like I hope you're showing up for yourself and for the community. All right, so today we have a nice show lined up, actually. We've got 3 video submissions to review, 2 questions, and I've got some demonstrations that I would like to share with you as sort of teaching tools to help specifically answer some of your questions. Now, uh, big shout out to those who've been submitting the videos. Peter and Thara from New Zealand, Ulrich from Belgium, and Dave from Idaho in USA. The reason I mention y'all is y'all have been with me for a few years now. I think we're coming up to like a good old 4 or 5 year anniversary in this online forum, and I think that is freaking amazing, right? Like who else can talk about that in the sense of coaching students for that long on the internet? I think this is great. And recently I went to Bali for an AI conference to see how that side of the world, like that technology, is going to or is impacting, say, like e-commerce and bigger niches in the world, right? Like, so what other companies are doing on a massive scale. I'm talking like $600 million a year in sales type of volume using obviously e-commerce platforms, but also how they use AI to integrate that, and then what that means for like the customers and stuff. So I'm like out there trying to figure out some new ways to understand how I can integrate things better for you. And I do have some ideas that I'm testing at the moment with some of my students to see how that works, and then I'll bring it to you guys first. This is something I can guarantee no coach is even probably thinking about. So I'm excited to bring that to you. And as always, we'll do things imperfectly, but with right action, okay? So let's get into some inspiration. I'm gonna bring you a video that I remember, I'll give you a little bit of back end story here. So my lessons, my God, this is gonna make me sound dated. Not dated, but old. My lessons back in the day, I remember I looked at my coach Penny and I'd go to her house. I was doing like 5 private lessons per week. Each were 1 hour. And so 2 of those were doubles. So 4 hours would be two lessons in a row. They would be on a Wednesday morning between sort of, I think, 8 in the morning and 10 a.m. Oh man, I was not ready at that time. I still hate 8 a.m. in the morning personally. But I would turn up, would have our black coffee, and then a lot of our lessons were geared around, besides going over the problems in some of our steps like you would, we would be watching videos. And I cannot overstate how important it is to study dance videos. And a lot of coaches don't do this. For a while, I was always considering as a teacher, thinking, is this actually like wasting people's time? I said, no. Like it can feel like you're not really doing anything, but you are. So we would watch these VHS. That's right. There's the dating VHS videos. But something revolutionary came out. DVDs. Holy shit, right? Anyway, so these VHS videos were from the 80s and the 90s, and it was the letter service delivered by DSI London. Jeffrey Hearn, for like 30 years, would once a month send a video out to the teachers around the world with updated choreography for different levels, medalists, hobbyists, or what social dancers are called, and then competitors, right? So every month for like 30 years he did this, and then they transformed them to DVDs. Now, when we were watching these videos, we would be copying. There'd also be like demonstration ones from the world superstars of dance. Now, I've got a video we're about to watch from that. And this is when you get that every year in Japan, they bring over the top 6 professional Latin, top 6 professional ballroom couples to demonstrate. So these are basically who were in the finals in Blackpool, to come and demonstrate their 5 dances each in the ballroom and Latin fields. Now, what an event that'll be, right? So that would come out on a DVD, and then we would copy the choreography on that for our dancing. Now, that's difficult, right? So we'd be pausing it, rewinding it. She'd always give me the rep, Vaughn, can you do this? Because she just couldn't be bothered or figure it out. And so I'd be like rewinding it. Then I'd be like, oh, Penny, look, we can slow it down. Look at this, boom, and be like frame by frame, copying this crazy choreography. So I'd always have 2 routines. I'd have my medal routines, which were like syllabus stuff, and then I'd have comp routines, which were like insane shit I couldn't do, okay? What was wild though is as we were doing this and also studying technique, I noticed that, Penny would be infusing, of course, the fundamentals of dance throughout all of this. It's like, she'd be like, what are you dancing? What are you doing? And she'd fix these things. But the visual of it, the actual watching, it's amazing to me how many people don't actually see what they're trying to produce. And so then you're only stuck with like information. So let me show you one of the videos that I think is a classic, Brian Watson and Carmen. So Brian Watson in the ballroom dancing world is sort of like a Jamie Oliver equivalent, that level of within the dance community, that level of sort of superstardom, okay? Because there are champions and then there are legends. I mean, this guy is a legend, meaning that, he moved the needle of what dancing was like. So pre him, dancing looked a certain way. Then he started winning. And then everybody started doing that. And then, that's what happens with the champions. And then the legends are the ones that pretty much shape it to like the next level of development that everyone then does. So if you look at dancing now versus the 1960s, it's vastly different. And then you can actually pinpoint certain champions that actually elevated the game. The 90s, a lot changed. And this is good for anyone who's a Latin dancer like you, Moritz, over in our good old, where do you live? You in Germany? Anyway, wherever you are out there in Europe. And the specific errors changed in Latin with, say, like hip action and upper body rhythm. And so everyone does this today. However, there was a point where this didn't occur. So it's cool to watch. Now, what I personally like about this era, I still think, and this is where I have this gripe, and maybe you can feel this if you're a bit of a more seasoned gentleman or lady, where you might notice that you have this tendency to think that back in your day was better for certain things. With dancing, I still think the best eras were in the, I wasn't dancing in the 90s. I started dancing 2002. So when I started seeing dancing for the first time, like VHS, DVDs, all that sort of stuff, competitions, I started, maybe I'm biased to that, but there's an era there from the 90s to sort of like the early 2000s where you really saw a difference between each dancer. Like, I mean, clearly, like the style. And you're about to see it now when we watch this samba, and you'll notice like, wow, why doesn't dancing look like that now? And I'll tell you, because I've spoken to Brian a few times. We actually had a business deal that sort of fell through, which is a story for another time. So I know this gentleman. I've talked to him. He's come out for workshops before. Penny brought him out to do some demonstrations and things like that. And he said that Vaughn, or to Penny, everybody comes to me and says, I want to dance like you, as into Brian Watson. And then he sort of snickers a little bit and goes, no, you don't. Because I went through, and this is in his teenage years, he's from South Africa. He's like, all my technique books were in tatters, right? The pages were falling out. He had gone through all the medal system. He'd gone through 2 lots of technique books by the time he was like 18. So he had really internalized the syllabus. And then he said, and then of course there's the price to pay for the training, isn't there? And he said, so, and kids won't even do the medals. This is like 20 years ago, right? So this is still the same problem. The point is that if success leaves clues, that should give you one. Do your medals, understand your syllabus, and then from there you can iterate and work. Now, granted, some people do have a propensity to be like geared towards dancing, more than others, but you can't override the fact that there was a huge amount of knowledge in there, and he would always go back to the basics within workshops and lessons and things like that. And so again, most people want the outcome without the result. Without doing the work, right? So in our field, what we're doing now, this is part of that work for you. So let me inspire you a little bit with a little bit of samba, and then we'll get into the Q&A. Here we go. Pretty dope, right? Okay, so you'll notice something there about how like ease of movement, right? Ease of movement doesn't look like not trying hard at all. Pretty dope. Crazy thing is when you watch them dance live, it is so much quicker because it only captures it at like 24 or 30 frames a second. So you don't actually see how quick and precise a lot of those movements are. Okay, so very cool to watch, worthwhile of studying. One thing I note to my students when I show them things like that is notice with things like basically any dance, but particularly samba, you need to stop. You need to like hit movements, then do the next bit, hit movements, and then do the next bit. And people forget that because they need that little bit of like tick in their movement. All right, so we'll get that to that another day. Let's hit some foxtrot. What's that? Did I just hear you chagrin? Yeah, the foxtrot. One of the dances that all the professionals make look easy, and that bothers anyone learning it for the first time, doesn't it? So Elizabeth and Graham, what do you got here? We're trying to improve our sway, shaping, and hip action in the foxtrot and the waltz. Well, that's a lot. Can you provide any tips on how to progress, not perfect, in particular, the context of the basic foxtrot, the figures, the feather, reverse turn, feather finish? I can, but that's going to be a long lesson today. So let's try this. In particular, we're going to work with the leading, the sway, and the shaping. So for myself, Elizabeth, I struggle in particular with the hip rise at the end of the feather. I do understand where the hip rise is throughout the dance. For example, on the feather step, step 3, I cannot execute it even when pacing it out. With ballroom shoes on, I find if the hip goes up on the right, I struggle to release the left foot and my body will fold and collapse. Okay, yeah, for sure. So first things first, I'm just going to say that from my personal experience, and my job here is not to even worry about what other coaches are doing. I'm going to tell you from my personal experience. You're way too early in your dancing to be worrying about your hip action in ballroom dancing. That can be very complicated. And I'll say that because when in my definitive moment of becoming a professional ballroom dancer, I had to move to England, where you are. And so, it's a serious move, quit my job, packed everything up, sold my car, took my shoes, another pair of shoes, and my clothes, ready to learn to dance. Going into the lesson with Anne Gleave, all right, she mentioned throughout our time together, you will be using your hips and they will be doing certain things. So that I think of it like a dumbwaiter. So for example, when you've got your feather coming through, let's just say as the man, so you will take your weight onto your right foot, for example, here. Now you can start to shape your hips to go, down and up. So you basically have like this dumbwaiter thing going on. However, and this is important, really, really important to understand, she said, don't even worry about it. Okay. So why? Because she was very systems focused, meaning that she says, when it comes to movement, you've got 3 planes of movement. So we've got our frontal plane. Okay, so that's this. Actually, it's better if I do it a bit bigger. So we have our frontal plane of movement. This is for everyone. And most sports focus on this stuff at a professional level. So there's our frontal plane, okay, going forward and back. Then we have our turn plane, okay, there. That's our turning axis, okay, around the center of our body. And then, of course, we have our sway plane, okay? So if you just try that with me, right? You've got your frontal plane moving forward and backward. You have your turn plane, and then you have your sway plane. So when we ballroom dance, we step, swing, and sway. So in foxtrot, if I have my arms just like this to demonstrate this, I'm moving forward, right? But I'm also creating a turn. And then there's a sway at the end of that. So we move through these planes and we use them in our movement. Now, what she would stress to me was you need to focus, first things first, on getting the frontal plane movement down. That has to be dialed in, meaning that it's not hit and miss. Like you're able to lower correctly, step with the correct footwork, take your weight out of your feet and move through on time. Now that is sufficient work. Like that is honestly work for most people that they'll never get past. Now, you can't avoid turning, right? So the CBM aspect we can talk about in a second, but the swing plane develops from our frontal plane. Okay, so meaning that I move forward, but I don't just go in a straight line, do I? I just don't do this. Okay, I have to let my body turn as well. So then we develop the swinging action through our body to come through. That's the second thing. Was the third, the sway. Now she goes, if you take care of the frontal movement and the turn, your sway starts to develop as a consequence of that. You don't have to develop it. All right. Now, here's the thing that I honestly think that this is one of the difficulties with dance is that just because a teacher has the knowledge doesn't mean the knowledge is correct for the pupil. Because I could teach you about how to develop your sway and I'll sound amazing, but you won't be able to do it. And then it's like frustration ensues. Why? Because the sway is taking care of itself if you can get the first two principles working. Now, when you're at a high level of dance, and I mean you're a professional competing at Blackpool type of level, and you have a chance of being in the 96 or the 48 or the 24, you start working on sway. Why? Because you have the other things, you don't have to think about them, they're there. And so now you start creating shape. We then from there develop our expression and our body dynamism, okay? You can't really do that without the other things there. Now, I hope that makes sense as a pre-frame to this. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't attempt things, but what I'm saying is that you'll get frustrated when you start implementing things that are either above your pay grade or your body isn't quite ready for. And people just don't know this is a thing. It's sort of like saying you want to win a marathon and you've never run one before. So it's great to have the goal, but if you're overweight and you've never run a marathon, how about you just start running or walking a couple of kilometers a day to start with, right? So then you sort of qualify to start running a bit more and, off you go with those little milestones. And dancing does work in the same way, which is why we like it, because you can sort of step this out. Now, when you look at what you should be working on in Foxtrot, it is the common problems that couples have is staying together. Like, would you agree with that? So I would say if I was to watch you dancing, that if you're not staying together, you aren't staying together, meaning that the common center here is the thing that you are noticing. It's coming back. I call it hitting speed bumps, right? So you'll notice that you'll move, and then maybe you move away from Graham, or he runs over you, right? Which is a very common problem for the man. So then what do you do? Well, this is a good question. One of the things I'll suggest you do is focus on the way that you straighten your leg to create rise. So because what we're looking at here is there's a mixture of things, right? So we've got our movement going forward and backwards. So as an exercise, I would say hold each other with a space between you, and in a row, in a line down the room, just dance your feather step, okay? And then dance from there your three step in a row, focusing on good footwork, good leg action, and then just moving as sort of two people moving as one with a gap between you. And then do it closed. Now, if you know the wave, do the reverse wave, which is basically a back feather, and then the lady does the man's three step. And that's your exercise. Go forward and back doing that, trying to stay together. You'll notice that you'll have all sorts of problems doing that. Now you can have it in a frame as well. That's totally cool, but do it with a bit of a gap to start with, or in order. Do it solo without your partner when you warm up. Do it with a gap, and then do it in connection, feather three step down the room, and then do a wave, excuse me, coming back. Now, once you understand that, when it comes to your legs, where do we create rise from? Okay, so rising and falling is like a key thing to ballroom dancing, isn't it? So we rise through our feet, legs, and body. Now, when I'm looking at the action of Foxtrot and the difference between that and the waltz, we're looking at the feet going forward on the right foot. This is for Graham, right, on slow. Now, the leg in waltz, when you go forward on count one in waltz, what happens is your knee actually has to keep flexing forward. That pulls your body. Now, waltz is more of a sideways dance than a rotational dance, meaning that I'm going to go forward, my knee's going to flex and continue, and then as I come out of that, I move sideways, and then I create this nice rise. We don't do that in Foxtrot. What happens in Foxtrot is you actually straighten your knee earlier. So when I take my first step forward on the right leg there, as soon as I've hit, count one, then count two, I start straightening that knee earlier. Notice now that pulls me up. I'll do it this way. So actually we'll go this way. Yoink. Yeah, that's about the right spot. So waltz, I'd be going right foot one, knee continues. Then I move forward again, and close. If I'm looking in the foxtrot, okay, I'm gonna go forward slow and start straightening it a little earlier, and that will pull me up. The thing about what now, why is this related to sway? Well, because our rising action is going to pull our bodies up in a certain direction. That's the thing we have to get right. We have to get our legs and our footwork to have a certain timing to them so we can stay together. Now, when that's happening, we also have to have a slight turn through the body. There's your CBM. So for that to occur, let me frame it like this. So for those who have a trouble with foxtrot, what is the difference between foxtrot and waltz? Right, both are around 30 bars a minute, okay? So besides the time signatures as well, the speed's about the same. It's actually the way we use our legs. So in waltz, you're going to rise more than you will in the foxtrot. So when we look at our leg action and our foot action, we're using them slightly differently. And again, people don't know this. They sort of carry across, the idea of footwork into each dance, thinking it's just the same. But the legs work differently. So as a man, what you have to do is two things. Not only do you have to understand how to rise better, but your job is to also prepare movements that allow you to step outside your Elizabeth. Okay? So in other words, when we're looking at the waltz is like a sort of sideways dance. We close our feet, we lower and we move off, right? We close our feet or whatever, and then we move off. And there is figures of strong rotation. It's quite circular going around the room. However, in foxtrot, what we're aiming to do is to prepare our body to be able to go outside our partner and then back in line. And that's why people find it very difficult, because it is hard to do this. It looks easy when it's done well, right? So let's just backtrack here. So what has to happen when you take that first step of a feather? Not only do you need to straighten that knee earlier, meaning by the time my left foot comes through, the right side of my body also has to start going back. You see, like that? Now that brings my left side forward. This is what prepares the man to be able to then go outside the partner in CBMP. There's your feather step. All right, so it started back here. Now, often what occurs with people in their feathers, or anytime they have to go outside their partner, is they'll step forward like this. Then it's like, oh shit, I need to step outside. And then they'll turn their hips and go like that to go outside. I've done that. Everybody's done that, okay? Because it's like, whoops, I got to go outside now, da-da. This is where the hips get a bit funny, right? I'll come to you in a second, Elizabeth, but the idea here is for Graham to know what the hell's happening. So step one, when you dance this together, get your weight on your right foot, start straightening the knee, feel that right side of your body starting to go, when I say back, it's also a focus of bringing the left side forward, right? There's your body lead. And now step through, done. The feather is a natural consequence of your first step, your feather step being fucking dope, all right? If you get that right, it does happen naturally, okay? Now, as a lady, your footwork is also important. So you go back, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, all right, when you go backwards, meaning you pull the heels, Welcome to your difficulty. Body rise and rise through your legs occurs through the knees and the body only, not the feet. So when you go backwards, the mistake most ladies make going backwards is they'll go left foot back, so that's toe heel. Now right foot, they'll go back on the toe and stay up, and they'll pull that toe through like this. Okay, so they'll be like this in the middle of their feather. That's wrong. So ladies, you got to go back. I'll do it side on. Pull the heel, pull the heel, pull the heel. And it counteracts the man going up. Now, what you do though with your legs, that first step for you, you will straighten through that left knee yourself as you pull that heel. Okay? So you will also respond and straighten your left knee, boom, and then keep pulling those heels in a beautiful continuous motion. All right? The body will then respond to that as well. So when you talk about the hips, to me, that's just a way of you trying to get the same outcome. But I would have a guess, without seeing you do this as a video, that the way Graham is creating his feather, he's not turning properly to get outside you at the right time, and you're rising through your feet on the feather step, rather than creating a continuous pull through the heels. Now, if you can focus on doing that throughout that exercise, feather three step, and do the wave, you're going to start to notice that the foxtrot has a nice curve to it. it's not really dancing on straight lines. So if I do my feather step here, although I'm coming directly towards you with the camera there, right, because of the swing of the body, I'll be going slow, quick, quick. Notice where I went. Now, when I come into the reverse turn, okay, same thing. I'm going to go forward, slow, quick, quick. Now, here's the thing I need to teach you about a reverse turn. And we could go all day on this, so I can't do every nuance about this. But with the reverse turn, the man's job, and this will come to, was there another question here? Oh, yeah, Dave, I'll talk to you this a bit later. The man's job is to close the lady's feet off. So often when I'm dancing with someone, they'll be like, hey, Vaughn, what are we dancing? I'll be like, oh, you have to follow, right? So I'm not going to tell you, you have to start to follow. And why do I say that? Because when we're doing a certain movement, my job is to challenge myself on closing the lady's feet, like basically giving Elizabeth no choice but to do a heel turn. So how do we do this? Well, when you finish your feather step, so this is the step 3, you're in CBMP, your feet come together, and then normally you go forward on step 4. So that's the first step of the reverse turn. Okay, so what's going to happen? I want you to straighten that left knee earlier. So lower into it, but when you come through here, straighten that knee earlier. And what you'll notice is that by doing that, you create a slightly quicker rise, and then you can come around her. If you stay down too long, slow, see that? That's like the waltz, right? And then you put the foot to the side and try to come up. What she'll do is the reverse turn in waltz. She'll go back and open her foot up. All right, because what has happened is you haven't given her the signal that her feet need to come to a fixed point, like closing together. All right, so ladies, remember you're doing this. You're going back and you're doing your heel turn to there. So this is the thing I'm talking about. The man has to help you do that. So at the end of your feather step, you're going to go forward on the left foot. Once you hit that position, straighten the knee, then bring the right foot around. When you do that, notice I'm swaying naturally, right? Because of that. I'm not trying to sway. This is the other thing I need to hit you on the head with. When you try to sway, your dancing is going to look worse because you're going to collapse. You're going to try to make a shape without having the feet and the body in the correct positions anyway. So listen, we're going to do that again. Forward, start straightening, bang, you cut her off. And then you can just hover out of it, okay? Last little thing about sway. So sway, technically speaking, this is how it's written in very confusing English, is the body's natural inclination away from the moving foot towards the inside of the turn, okay? Big ass fancy words for saying that you have to balance your swing. So if you think of the analogy of this plane taking off, you know, its frontal plane is going woof, and then it takes off, and to turn, it starts to create that nice arc, right? So we've got a acceleration, woo, and then we start to swing, and there's a sway, of course, as a balance. So think of it another way. When you're on a bike, if you go very slowly, okay, you can just turn the bike, you can sit upright and just turn, and that's fine. But if you're going fast on a bike and you try to stay upright and turn like that, what happens? Well, because of the speed, and we've all done this, right? I've axed myself on my bike before, but your handlebars will lock and you will flip over because of the speed, right? How do you turn then when you go fast on a bike? You're riding, you lean, don't you? Well, what are you doing there? You're swinging and you're swaying, right? That's also what we do in ballroom dancing, but we don't have to think about it. What happens is because of the legs and the body working correctly, you start to do that naturally. When you start to try to do it, you fuck your dancing. You start going one like this. All right. But on the side note, what do you focus on? Okay. What an awesome question I just proposed to myself. This is what you focus on. You can focus on stretching the sides of your body. Super secret ninja tip. This is so important. So I'll give you another example of this. In the waltz, as a lady, if you're thinking of swaying, you crumple your dancing. This is where you get heavy, you side load, you get all sorts of problems. Then you might think, oh, my hip. No, fuck your hip. I mean, sorry, don't worry about your hip. We're going to focus on stretching the side. So if I want to create a nicer shape, right, or stay with my partner, that would be amazing, right? I'm going to stretch my right side up to the man. You see like that? Now, because of that, I've created the sway. Done. I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here. Boom. As a professional, right, a professional ballroom dancer, This is where dancing gets really hard, okay? But just so you're aware of how much pursuit of perfection you're aiming for when you dance, the man and lady do not sway the same. So it's easy to look in the ballroom technique book and it says, as an example here, the man will go, so we'll do the natural turn in waltz, it's a bit easy to understand. Straight, right, right, straight. That's the natural turn sway. Lady would go straight, left, left, straight. Okay, if we made it look awkward. All right, however, this is important. Please understand this. How much I sway, you do not do. So what happens instead? In fact, there are some steps in advanced figures where the man will be swaying, the lady will not be swaying at all. And you're like, what? Why? Well, because we're not doing the natural opposite. Because then we end up crumpling. So, for example, hold your partner and sway. Open the feet and sway to the right a little bit as the man. Ladies, copy exactly how much he's doing. You're going to notice something that's a big collapse for you. Do the same thing. Man will sway a little bit to the right from by stretching the opposite side. So if I want to sway if I want to sway, to my right, I'll stretch my left side. If I want to sway to my left, I'll stretch my right side. And when I do that, I would like the lady to not think about swaying and to think of turning towards the man when that happens. All right, turning towards the man. What you'll notice is you'll sway as a natural consequence without thinking of it, but more importantly, you'll create a better shape in your upper body. And I'll say it again. You're not thinking of swaying your body as the lady, because the man is. You're thinking of turning your body towards him, okay? So if he goes into his little sway movement, you turn your body towards it. Now look at this, in a natural turn, 1, if I do it poorly, 2, I'm swaying to the left, I'm swaying to the left. This is heavy, he's gonna have a very painful right arm. However, if I go back, 1, 2, and I think of stretching the right side up, I'm already swaying naturally, but now I'm on my feet and I can shake my head at the end. You see? So it's understanding these differences and why is going to make a huge difference for you. Now, if we come back to what you do, your exercise is feather 3-step, feather 3-step, do the reverse wave coming back, focusing on good leg action and trying to get that rise through the knee, like I was saying earlier, and turning the body at the correct time. One last little thing, when it comes to the 3-step, okay, it's the same idea. The goal in Foxtrot, because the feet are constantly moving, but at varying speeds, okay, think of speeding up and slowing down like in a car going down a hill or up a hill, we are going to have a moment of collection. So my feet must come together at a certain point. Now it's at that point, you both need to be aware of where your body is, i.e., you won't have one shoulder back and one forward. At the moment your feet come together, your body should be square. So my hips are on top of my shoulders, for example. Then I'll use my legs a certain way to go into the next step. And now I can create the next shape. So if I'm going into from a feather step here, as my foot collects at the end of the feather step, my body's square. See that? On top. Now I'll keep lowering, slow, into the 3-step. Then my side leg can come through. When I finish the 3-step, okay, same thing. I'm going to collect my weight and my body's in the middle, or should be like what I would call normal. Then I can move into the next shape. This takes time, guys, so do not stress. The reason I go this deep on the content is because I record it for you to access again and come back to. This is not a one and done type of, this is not a one and done lesson. Now, what we just talked about is quite in depth, but I encourage you, right? You can do it. Even if a little bit of that clicks, you're going to see a huge difference, all right? Please keep in mind, often in dancing, the simplest explanation is the thing you're aiming for. So ironically and paradoxically, with dancing, the thing you're trying to do, which is create more shape and sway, is what you're not going to do by trying to create it. All right, we want to understand underneath what is going to generate that, okay? And if it looks easy, then we know a lot of tears have gone into it, all right? Okay, next question. Moritz, hello, Vaughn. When dancing the Cucaracha and Rumba, I'm really focusing on my hips and leading my movement with my upper body. Cool. Now my dance teacher noticed that I'm breaking the line on counts 4, 4 and 1. I tend to create a dropped hip on one side. How can I prevent this while maintaining the hip movement? And when should I start to move my upper body out to reach the outer position with my foot? He mentioned that there is another figure of 8 in the ribcage. Yep. Do you have any tips on how to achieve this? Yes. So we're going to do two things. There's a little exercise I'm going to give you for the hips and the upper body, and then sort of how to work them together. But I'll just see if I can get this little picture in here. I'm going to put a picture in the window right now. I didn't get this before. I need to show you a picture of your pelvis. All right. So that's probably a good one there. Yeah, this is good. This will be a good, what do you call it? A good visual representation of what you need to focus on. Who knew that you wanted some anatomy lessons today? Okay, well, that's the connective tissues. I'm just going to use this is okay. It says the female pelvis, but I don't have time to search for another one. So let's just use this one. This is more about, I think, the muscles than anything. So let's just do that. Bang. And then side view, back view, angle. This would be good for everyone, actually. There is a chain of muscles that is really good to focus on. Based on your question, you're obviously, and I remember seeing videos of you dancing, you obviously have a lot of fluidity in your movement. So you got the opposite problem to a lot of people, that you're Mr. Wiggly Woo. You can move way too much. And so a lot of the time men have a problem with being too stiff. You have the opposite problem. And often I get that with, well, let's say female gymnasts, where they will be so flexible that they have to work on like strength training. So even though they got, let's say, arms that go, double joint the other way, well, for them, stretching their arms to the maximum actually makes their arms look a bit deformed. So it's problematic, right? And this is where it's important to note your body and what is good for your specific body. And it may not, you might hear someone talking about, here's what you should do, but it's based on how their body responds, right? So this is where technique is loose. Technique is not hard and fast, guys. It's an interpretive thing. So we only use it just as a guide. So I might take bigger steps than your teacher, right? But that's because I'm like 6'2". My legs are long and it feels good. I've noticed if I try taking really tight, small steps, it feels horrible and I can't move. So horses for courses is the other way to think of it. Now, for the love of God, apologies for this. Let me just give me a quick second. You know what I'll do? Let me put on a dance video while I put this little picture together for you. Here is a nice waltz by Luca and Lorraine. Oh my God. It's some of the best dancing you'll ever see. And this is what I mean, like that quality is not around as much anymore. If you watch dancing, everyone's trying to run, right? Fast, 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 waltz, waltz, waltz. Waltz is slow. It's a slow waltz. And make it slow, right? Like how effortless and beautiful, right? And we all know a lot of effort went into that, yeah. But again, that's what I'm saying about the sort of errors of dancing. I think that's still some of the best produced dancing ever. Now, if we look at the diagram that I just found, so I will whack it in the window now. This will help everybody. So stay. Thank you for being patient on this. As I and these technical things. Okay, so boom, boom. All right. So let's just ignore the fact it says the female pelvis, if you will. So this idea here, right? This is from above. So you want to imagine this muscle group. See a little hole there, right? So you want to be pulling up from the center of that. If we look at there's another little picture here. I'll bring in the window as well. Okay, here the pelvic bone. Woo, let's just get that moving up a little bit. Okay, so if you have a look at where the coccyx is in the sacrum, yeah. So that's your tailbone, in other words. A lot of people think about the spine when it comes to posture. However, if I bring back this one, we also want to think about the actual muscle groups. So let's go from above, from the front, right here. So looking at the center, so everyone could see that's the spine at the back. So what we want to think about here is where that little hole is, where the muscle is, you want to pull up from that. That's the visualization. You need to imagine that you've got a string or like it's called the butcher's hook analogy, that you're pulling up. Often dance teachers will refer to the idea of hooking your head, right, on a string. However, I think it's better if you can think of it from the middle of your pelvis up, and you're pulling that up. So no matter what you do when you flex your knees, when you go to move like say from foot to foot, you have this inner feeling of your posture being elevated. So if I bend my left knee, my pelvis, I'm still pulling out of it and up. So there's no collapsing. And that's a common problem, and one that all of us have to out train, because say from sitting or general work, things like that, we're often collapsing in here. Okay. So the first thing to get right out before the technique is actually to get your alignment and your pelvis correct. Now, there's a few ways to do this. You can just run on the spot. You notice you get your pelvis in the most natural position without having to fuck around too much with what your pelvis should be doing. Okay. Also notice if your pelvis tilts back for me, right? Try that, and then tilt it forward, collapse it. So if you go forward and back a few times like that, you can actually start to get it into a neutral position. This is the main thing, the neutral position, and get your body weight up and forward like that. So with that in the right spot, you should feel that there's a little bit of tension or engagement, or what we call bracing in the waist happening, because you're lifting out of the center of your pelvis. Whatever you then do with your hip action, if you feel yourself collapse at all, you're either going too far, or the structure's lost and you're sort of sacrificing movement for quality. And we want both. So if you move a little less, Moritz, that's good, so long as you feel that you've got a lot more sort of this upward feeling. Now, there's one more analogy you can think of, and that's a pot. So I'll get this for you. Here's my little pot. Boop. Okay, so that can also represent your pelvis, and this can represent your spine. So what you want to feel is that you've got a very solid base, and then you've got this flexible spine and upper body, so nothing feels stiff, but you feel very grounded sort of in your pelvis, and then up from there, everything can fall. So it's like this inward to outward feeling, where inside's very strong, but outwardly very fluid. And you do need to have those two things together. Now, when you first try this, it's hard because everything gets stiff. The minute I tell people to correct their posture, first thing they do is lift their upper body, they take a big breath, and they arch back. This is not how you correct the posture. You want to bring it from the pelvis, but then have your arms and your upper body loose. Now, with that in mind, the exercise I want to talk about, just open the feet and the arms there. I'll do it on a bit of an angle there. And then we go sideways. So you're pulling your rib cage to the left, and to the right, like that, right? So we'll go from here and we'll go left, right, left, right. So try as best you can not to move the hips, okay? Just move the upper body as in the rib cage. All right, now the next thing I want you to do, put your hands on your hips, and we're gonna take our chest and we're gonna go forward, and then we're gonna collapse it and create a curve through the back, like that, okay? And then forward and then back. And again, don't move the hips, right? So this is the upper body, okay? One more time, boom, boom, there. So forward and back, it's a good stretch actually, okay? Now once you've done that, we're gonna now create our sidewards action again, okay? Forward and back, so you see side on, forward, sorry, left and right, left and right. Okay, so you should have a bit more flexibility. The hips haven't moved when you do this. So now you can go forward and back, side to side. We now do, imagine a ball going around your chest, around through the front of the chest to the back, and you're going to create a circle with this ball. So if I go side on, I'm going to go around and create a circle through my upper chest, like that. Okay, now my shoulders aren't moving, so I'll do it this way, but I'm going around through the center like that. Okay, go the other way. And again, keep your hips still. Keep your hips still and note when I use the shoulders, because the shoulders move naturally, right? But note when I use the shoulders to do this. Okay, it's not the idea. So we want to use just this part, and you'll have less flexibility at first when you try this, or you'll definitely have less coordination because you've got to practice that. But you should be able to do a circle forward both directions, yeah? Now, once you've got that, that's a good warm-up. Now let's do the figure of 8 with your chest. So what is the figure of 8? Well, first of all, you always think corners and forward first. So if I go forward if I want to do a figure of 8, I'll start with my left side going diagonally out. So I'll go out, then I'll bring my left side diagonally back. Now I'll bring my right side diagonally forward, and then my right side diagonally back. And so with that sort of triangulation, in terms of pattern, we make it flow. So left side, forward and back, right side, forward and back. So then we create the figure of 8 through the chest. All right, it's hard to do, but that action there is part of the upper body rhythm, okay? When you go to do your cucarachas, there's a few things going on. First of all, don't take the steps too big. Both heels should stay on the floor. Weight has to be part weight, all right? So they're the basics. Ball flat, ball flat. The hip goes what? Figure of 8. It's a rotational movement, then it comes back, and you close your feet, change legs, same thing. Figure of 8, come back, close and change legs. Okay, so we'll just do that again. So left foot, left hip out, right, and then back, right hip out, and then back. Okay, then if we go to the right, right hip forward, then back, then close, and then change weight. Left hip forward, then back, then close and change weight. Okay, now I haven't used my upper body yet. So in terms of the feet and base, get that good. When you use the upper body, so this is where you start to separate into more advanced dancing. You want to feel that there's a settling action first, then you move to the side. Now, you want to feel that little figure of 8 thing you did in your chest to go left. So it's almost like the foot will arrive before the body, but it's like the chest is going to be working, then the hip, then the chest, then the hip. It's like that action. Close, change weight, take again, right foot goes to the side first, chest, and then the hip. And you'll feel the sides sort of contracting, okay? Like a sponge squeezing. Now, here's the thing. You must pull out of your pelvis the whole time. So your abs are going to get a good workout. There's a lot of rotation happening, but there's no collapsing. If I collapse, you end up looking like a seedy salsa dancer. Yeah, I said it, okay? So it doesn't look very masculine. When you're dancing with your crotch hanging out everywhere, not as good. Masculine, you've got to be very strong, lift the body up and forward, keep the weight forward, and you're dancing with strength, conviction, purpose, right? Everything's up, okay? There's no collapsing. Now, that you might not see very much, but the upper back, right? I want to create that action through the sides, right? So side, doom, there, and then around, boom, and then again the other way. So I go side on, boom. You can see a little bit more of the actual like 3D-ness, boom, boom. There's a lot of coordination in that, okay? So work that into your dancing, but please keep in mind the alignment of the pelvis as you do it, and don't be afraid of doing less. less size of your movement, aim for quality. Okay, let's get into the last part of the lesson, which is going to be our video reviews. All right, let's go. Peter and Tara from New Zealand, let's hit it up. Let's go.
Just keep
Okay, so lovely. Now, guys, look, the good news is you yeah, you're not gonna have to do a lot to really to really stand out even more in a good way. Okay, so that's one of the benefits to a lot of the masters dances is that it's great to be on the floor, isn't it? It's a nice feeling in movement. But if you just do one specific thing a little better, it's going to help you tremendously. Because what what most people don't know is what are you being judged on, right? So when I say being judged, like in a competition, you're not being judged on your technique. Okay, it's your body language and body tone, how you hold yourself, how you present yourself. So the idea is to look fabulous in 4 seconds. So if someone's scanning the floor, bang, you stand out for a good reason. Okay, what is that good reason? It is the quality of your frame. That's all I want you to focus on. Now, specifically, your left arm, Peter. What's happening is it's becoming a droopy maloopy, right? Your arm, it's a technical term. You can use that one. So you start off with a reasonable frame. Now, by the way, there's obviously a height difference. And in terms of frames, what we do as the man is we adjust our hold to the ladies. So ladies, always remember when you hold your frame, elbow to elbow, slightly below your shoulder line and slightly forward is where your elbows sit. They can't come up in line with your shoulders. They can't come above and they can't go back, right? So they set in their natural position. Then the man has to adjust his frame. Now, the man still wants to create, even if he has to bring the arms down, a straight line from elbow to elbow. Can you see that? Now, unless there's a really big height disparity, you don't really see that very often, right? But what you can make sure is good is your left arm. Now, the left arm is actually quite a difficult thing to get right, believe it or not. In fact, I do have trouble with some of the masters. I call it masters tantrums, right? I do have a couple that comes in occasionally, and yeah, he just doesn't like the work to fix that because it's hard. It's hard. It's really hard to fix your hold, and it's hard to fix the arm when you're used to things in a certain way. But I know you can do it. You've been with me for a long time, and you've made a lot of strides. So what do you do to fix it? Well, first of all, you have to think about your arm always in relationship to your own body first and foremost, Peter. And what can happen when you're holding something or someone is, and especially owing to movement, the arm can start to take on a life of its own. Okay, and so what we want to make sure we know is where the hell is my left arm always? Because it actually won't move out of that position. Now, don't get me wrong, when we look at leading and following, we actually do use our hands to lead and follow. We do use our hands to initiate turn, but we do it in a way that it doesn't look like the frame is moving. Before we get there though, you have to have a base level of your arm staying in its place. So when you look at your actual what do you call it? Your left arm position, first and foremost, all right? Put it out to the side, slightly below your own shoulder level. Notice how it's forward. Fold in from the elbow. Okay, and now, where you fold it in from is important because when you bring your hand up, it's generally at a 45-degree angle, just below your eye level, all right? The hand and the wrist is straight. That's where your left arm is. Now, you notice that position. Now, you might bring the left arm in, that tango, you'd bring it down and in, right? But in the ballroom dances, the swing dances, it just remains there. That's your left arm. Now, what I'd recommend you do is you take that position, very importantly, Farah, when you come up to Peter, you have to make sure your arm, so if we look at your arm position, okay, there, just make sure we're at the right angle. So your arm naturally goes out there as the lady. Now, and then what do? Well, your elbow is always going to be slightly flexed, and you also have a straight wrist. So when you hold, you create like a gable within the actual handhold. So there's no wrist putting backwards like this. You must hold your arm up towards him though. Do not let your elbow go up to your shoulder level. All right, so you have to find the right space. The next thing is, I would then say start, again, work with something simple, do a basic waltz, do your basic foxtrot. Don't do anything technical, like difficult yet, like in the warm-up, like a fall over reverse pivot. That's crazy. Just take that hold, get into your position, one left hand only. Tara, I want your right arm to be up and out, but Peter, I want you to put your right arm by your side. So you're only holding with the left hand. And then I want you to just do your basic waltz, maintaining that position, that hold with the hand, okay? You're gonna notice something when you do this. It is really difficult. It's really difficult. In fact, it's so hard to do that I notice when you start to try a spin turn, which you should do, right? You'll notice that immediately you're not gonna stay together. That will tell you how inactive your left side is, which is one of the key things that us as men have to be aware of. We have to use our left side to come around the lady all the time. On spins, on turns, we want to use that left side to come around, which means the left arm has to be in the right spot. Now, if I show you just one more time, a specific point where you can notice it start to drop. This is not necessarily a stamina thing. Okay, where it really becomes obvious. Yeah, it's starting to drop here, you see, right there. See how it's flat? And then it sort of goes up and down a little bit. So there. So in that position there, that's promenade, and then you're going into the running weave. Okay, so what you can practice as a little exercise is, I'll just take these off. Okay, what you can do practice as a little exercise is a basic waltz with left hand only. Okay, do that to warm up. Then do a harder part of your routine like the fall over reverse slip pivot and the double reverse spin with one hand. And that's plenty, isn't it? The other thing you can work on is promenade. So when you go into promenade position, note my elbows, okay? How do you visualize this yourself? You must think of the horizon. So anytime you look at your frame, your elbow line needs to match the horizon. So the horizon's not doing this, yeah? So my left arm is gonna have that line. So if I bend my knees, I'm not changing that line. Now, if I go to promenade, right, when I come up here, note my elbows. See where they are? Not like that. Then when I step out, I'm keeping them balanced in line with the floor. So they're like parallel to the floor right now, aren't they? Then I can move into, say, the running weave, yanda. And you might create like a sway. That's fine. The sway is about the shape of the body, and then the arms are still in that position. So there, we're not worried about being in line with the floor. I'm talking about when you go out of promenade as a key example, and that'll actually affect your running weave massively if you dip. So here's a common problem everyone faces: dip promenade like this. Now you end up going like yum, boom, whoom, all this wobbling business. So once you go into promenade correctly, that elbow in the right spot, you're going to notice that you can swing like into the next step quite effectively, right? Again, it's about weight. So we want to feel that, like I said to Maritz, you still lift up through your pelvis as best you can, but it will depend on how much training you can do for all that to stick. What you can fix is the left arm being in the right position, then work through a series of the problematic steps. So your problematic steps for sure will be coming out of promenade and doing the turns into promenade. So if you do a telemark, you'll notice that your arm might dip. So hold thorough, get your left arm in position, lower and step to the side, and then brush and come up, keep your side stretched, and then lower. And then do it again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, like that. Just get you then turn a little bit. 1, 2, 3. Okay, she's staying with you. 1, 2, 3. Things like that, although they seem simple, if you practice them as part of your daily dancing on your own, 10 minutes a day, just like that, 10 minutes a day, left arm in the right position, you're going to start to notice a big difference. Now, also, Thara, the ladies' responsibility is huge here because most ladies become handbags on the man, right? They become potato sacks just hanging on the man's shoulder. So what you can do, gentlemen, when you're practicing with your partner, and this is not to be a prick, but basically when you do a movement, you can finish the movement, drop your arms. Now, what you'll notice is as soon as you do that, if the lady's arms do this, she was hanging on you. The lady should feel when you drop your arms that it has no effect on her whatsoever in her position or her arms at all. Okay, and that's how you start to learn, oh, shivers, like I've been hanging on him. Therefore, he's been picking me up, and that's affecting the movement, right? Let's look at the next video. Mr. Ulrich. Oh, okay, hold on now. Boom, face cam. Okay, so what's your question, man? Hello, Vaughn. This time it's the cha-cha. A new season of dance classes has started. Well, golly, that sounds amazing. And we've started a new combination. I'll send you a video. That's the video we're going to look at. First of all, how to style or even add a variation. I won't add a variation seeing as though you're doing class stuff. That's could just be a waste of both of our time, but I will help your dancing. Currently, there are 4 of the same ones in a row, and the second is about a hockey stick. If I understand correctly, you teach to place the hand over the lady's head onto her shoulder. I was never taught this way. I don't see anyone dancing it like this, and I can't find it in the technique book either. Well, not everything's in the technique book. I find it can be difficult to execute and tip to welcome. Now, often with the hockey stick, the hands can be like at the hips, right? But that's how I was taught, and I'm going to show you something in a moment that will help you. In fact, I'll do it now in case I forget. So I'm going to use a video that I often refer to my students for multiple reasons by Oksana and Franco on, and there's a basic, it's a rumba, right? But rumba and cha-cha are related dances. They're both from Cuba. And so we use the same steps. Like basically when you look at fan position, the 2 things that you come out of in fan position are 1, a hockey stick, which is what you're talking about, and 2, an alemana. So there'll be a problem I'll talk about leading into the hockey stick, but let me show you the demonstration of a basic rumba by these 2, and you'll see a beautiful, I think in this demo there should be a nice hockey stick. I'm hoping there is from my memory. Let's just check this out together.
Aquella luna plateada, aquella cama tan mojada, aquel caballo desbocado
There's your ribcage action.
sobre el que juntos cabalgamos, aquella boca premiándome, aquel banquete de amor. Estoy triste hoy y me hace falta quererte y no me rindo si no te rindes. Quiero pecar en ti.
What was that, Ulrich? Did you see what I just saw? Did everyone just see what I saw? Check this out. I'm going back there. I'm doing it again. Okay, check this out.
Hoy y me hace falta quererte.
Okay, here. So here's your hockey stick, 2, 3, 4. Now notice, where is the left hand going? What? What's this? Okay. Then, see there, that little drape over the shoulder. Then he rocks back, replaces the weight, and then follows the lady. Okay? Let's finish.
Hasta morir de amor, pecando en ti. Quiero pecar en ti y entre tu mar de piel, mojarme como un pez nadando en ti.
Oh, amazing. I freaking love that video. The thing is about that is I love showing that to people, especially, you know why? I love to be one of those, like, I'm not passive aggressive, but I feel like sometimes I am with my teaching students. I'm like, look at this. Are you dancing like that? No, then why do you want this fucking crazy choreography thinking it's going to win you a competition? If you can dance like that, you're going to win. That is all very basic syllabus. That's not even like a high level medal syllabus, okay? So look how it's danced though, right? Now, by the way, I have an interview with that lady, Oksana, on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, check it out with her. We went deep onto, that was Franco, so they were together as a partnership. So if you want some of the inner workings of how that worked and didn't work, it's a good 2-hour interview you should check out. So when we look at the hockey stick, right, there is a few issues there. So we're going to look at your video, not as a side-by-side to that. Please understand, that is unrealistic as fuck. They're like one of the top ever, again, like legends in the dance world. So what you do, though, with that is use it as inspiration, and then you borrow things. It's like, I'm not doing that with my hand, or not, my hands droop, or I'm not holding my body up. You know, you look at little things like that that you can actually implement, and then off you go to the races and work on that. So if we look at the routine that you've got, let me check this out. Just watch your timing. That seems off. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. So I don't understand that choreography, but here's the thing I'm noticing. When she has to do the hockey stick, she's not doing it from fan position, okay? So I won't talk about that so much. Actually, no, I will talk about fan because there's plenty of people that do that. Okay, the main thing about the hockey stick, the lady has to get in the correct position. And what the difficulty is, I don't know this because, teaching this thing for like 20 odd years. So let's just understand where we are in the room. So first of all, as the man, fan position is, standing on the right leg, and the lady is 90 degrees to me, there. And ladies, you stand on your left foot with your right foot in a straight line. So like this. So that's your fan position, okay? Now, from here, normally you close, change weight, step forward, and then you might do a lock. Then Alemana to the right, or when you should have started turning, or you go into your 1/8 of a turn to the left and you do your hockey stick cha-cha-cha. And that's where the man does the whole arm thing. Okay, so one of the first problems that people face, that you're not actually doing this yet, so this will be a problem you might face another time, is when the ladies go into fan. So let's say a hockey stick, hip twist. So cha-cha, hip twist here. The ladies' first problem, 2, when they turn, so notice you step across your body. 3, they often go sideways on the lock rather than backwards. It's a backwards lock, therefore not ending in that 90-degree angle. So basically, ladies, if I was to like put myself straight like this, where my hand is, the lady is in a straight line in front, 6 inches in front of me. So that way, when she dances forward, she ends up on my left side for either the Alemana or the hockey stick. So this is number 1. The lady passing me, if she gets to, so I'll go side on here. So when she locks, cha-cha-cha, I want her on my left side. If she's in front of me here, this is where your video kicks in, Ulrich, you've got this hockey stick happening. If the lady's already passing me, well, I've got to go back, don't I? Now, we have massive space. So first of all, you won't be able to do the hand thing. But secondly, you'll be so far away, you won't be able to lead her out of it. Because this is important. The lady does not turn because of the routine. She turns because of the lead. That's right. That's right. So, this is why you got to finish your steps, ladies. So what happens in your routine, when she's doing that lock, try to keep her on this side of you. So when you go backwards, you'll notice in terms of space, she's just about here. She's not like in Timbuktu. All right. And then you just rock your weight forward. You should feel that when she finishes that step on her right foot, you're able to turn her and then you lock together. It's a really cool feeling. Now, I actually want to address a bigger problem, and that is your turns. When you turn in Latin dancing, the rule is you step first, then you turn. So let's look at, say, a spot turn, for example. When you do a spot turn as a man and lady, this is what we do. So I'm going to do one to my right at the moment. My left foot actually goes forward and across. So what happens when I create my turn? I step first, then I turn. You'll notice my left foot is to the side and back. That's good. Then I could just recover the weight and then chasse out of it. So watch this again. I step across my body, then I turn on count 2, and then that's 3, cha-cha 1. If I turn and then step, it's often because of the body and you're panicking, right? So you do this action. And now you're going to be off balance. So if I turn the other way, same thing. I step across my body, then I turn 2, then 3, then cha-cha-cha. If you do an Alemana, an underarm turn, any turning 3 step, a spiral, anytime you turn as the man or lady, you step first, then you turn. I'll say it again. You step first, then you turn, which means your foot must be quick. Boom, boom. Then you're good to go. You'll have more balance, more speed, and more control if you do that. Okay, very, very important thing that most people don't practice properly. So the last little thing, nope, that's plenty. So work on that and get your feet to place faster ahead of your body, and you'll notice it. Now we have one more video, then we're going to wrap it up. So thank you for sticking with me. Let's do it. We've got Dave. Hello, Dave. Welcome.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when your love come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence. I'll chance will come and sit right with me.
Dave, well done, man. Okay, a lot has improved for you. All right. You first of all, age defying. Okay, not many, 78-year-olds, 77-year-olds can dance like that. So you keep that up. Keep that up, my man. And let's work on a couple little basic things that you can implement. All right. You're actually keeping good time. I want you to work on. So you notice I talked extensively about Peter and the left arm thing. So I want you to implement that as well. However, what I'd like you to do is try to keep her a little bit more in contact with you. So with your right arm as the man, now we don't want to have too much tension, but you do want to feel like quite snug with your partner. So you want to feel that it's a difficult one, right? Because you don't want to grip too tightly, but you want to feel that within here, this connection point, the hand, the right side, that she's staying with you. And then when you go to create turns, even though it's a lot of connection on this right side, you want to feel that that left side of yours is actually very strong and sort of cutting her off a little bit. All right, that's for turns. So if we look at the idea of boom, boom, boop. Okay, so if you're leading like a double reverse spin, for example, okay, you're not trying to create a wide frame. No, that's a dance sport thing. Don't worry about that. You want comfort. You want to hold her scapula, her back, and you want to create a little connection here. And then when you go to turn, you want to feel that that left side of yours is coming around her a little quicker. And if you keep her with you, you'll be able to have a little bit more speed in the turn. Because you want to generate, like I was saying to Ulrich, with leading and following, the lady she's not responsible for the speed and timing, right? So that's your job. She has to respond to that. Now she responds to the lead, yeah? So what's the lead? Well, as you lower, you're thinking of using your entire body to create the spin, because a double reverse spin is not a slow turn. It's 1, 2, and 3. Now, the other thing I want you to try to do, and this is for everyone, by the way, this is why feedback is good, is I need you to rise a little bit more up through your feet. Now, you can achieve this by lowering better. So think of a hotel. In a hotel, we have our basement, we have our ground floor, our mezzanine level, and our first level. When you stand, so if you do this with me, here as the man or lady, that's ground level. Knees are slightly flexed. Go down to the basement for me. That lowering there is what I'm referring to. You want to lower a little bit more, then you always come back up to the ground through the middle of a step, and then you go up to the mezzanine level. This is about where you are. This is good for foxtrot, right? Go up to level 1 in the waltz, a little higher through your toes, okay? Then go back to the ground floor, go back to the basement. So that's our rise and fall levels. So what I'm asking you to stretch your feet to do is to just go up a little higher onto the toes before you lower. And also between count 3 and 1, create a better downswing. Now this is absolutely achievable for anyone at any age. And in fact, by lowering a little better, you end up creating a nicer swinging action. Because ballroom dancing is all about swinging, right? I'm not talking about the 70s fun parties. I'm talking about the swinging action here. Your legs create the base for it, and your body weight like a pendulum swings through it. And with that in mind, as you're keeping her in that connected part, we want our body to be able to close her off. So as a man, there's a bit of a theme here today. You want to make sure you allow your body to come around and make sure the lady's feet come together. That's sort of our job. If we start dropping our frame and we start collapsing, it's not really an aesthetic thing. It creates more of a mechanical problem. You become very heavy. So if my left arm starts drooping and we're both hanging on each other, turns become really off balance, right? So again, this is not about creating world-class like arms, okay? It's not about that. It's about making sure there's a balance in the arms. So one of the things you want to feel in terms of like the energy, you don't want one arm to be sort of loose and then one to be tight. You need the arms of both the man and lady to be about the same level of tone from the hands all the way through. And so if you can just maybe set up a couple times, just feel a nice lift of the arms and just notice where they might drop, and then just go back to that figure again and hold them in a nice position. So if I can see that developing we over time, and it is an over time thing, you're going to see a more consistent look in your arms, but you'll also start to notice that you're staying together more. And that's a really wonderful thing because then the dancing feels amazing. Okay, so listen, thank you everyone for staying with me. I appreciate you tuning in and watching this live or in the replay. Submit your questions for next month. Submit your videos if you want to. With the videos, please submit them in a format that I can download them properly onto my Mac. They often have codec issues, meaning that if you can export it or set up your phone to record it for H.264 or a Mac video, that would be great. So if you don't know what the hell that means, I can send you some specific instructions, but it just makes it easier because often I'll download the videos and they'll be black. And that's not necessarily because of you. It could be how you recorded it on your phone, the settings in that, and then it doesn't actually allow me to play it. I can hear it, but I can't see it. The files aren't really corrupted. It's just more that. Or let's figure out a different way. I can download them off YouTube, but that can be a bit more time intensive for me. But if you can try to make my life a bit easier on that, that would help. But I do want your videos. So send them across. This is a very welcoming area. And as you know, I'll be direct with fun, and I'll make sure that you get the most out of your membership as we go through this together. So thank you for being here. Progress over perfection, baby. And I'll see you in the next lesson.